What's up Saab fans, and welcome back to another video. Today it's the day where we're going to lower this Saab 95 Aero to the ground by installing some coilovers. And this is probably the cheapest coilovers you could get. They are for Opel Vectra B or Vauxhall Vectra B. And you just have to modify the front ones where they sit in the bottom. So I'm going to show you how we do that. And this episode is going to contain a lot of grinding and welding. And previously I have not done YouTube videos for so long, but I have destroyed 3 lenses by grinding and welding and getting stuff on them. So I'm going to change the lens, so you might see some dots in the video, but you have to live with that so I can keep one lens okay. So let's go! So I have started off pretty basic with just putting the car on jack stands. I think everyone could manage that, so I didn't film it. Before I did that, I measured the height from the floor up to the fender, and in the front it was 65 centimeters and in the rear it was 65.5. So that's pretty much the stance I'm going for. I want it to lean a little bit forward because I think it looks just soggy to have it lower in the back than in the front. So to disassemble this, you just need to undo this 18mm nuts. Then this one is 19mm. And this could be a hassle to remove, but I think the guy that previously owned this car changed this not too long ago, so it should be quite easy. So just remove this, the ABS sensor and the brake line as well. It's really easy. So when everything is loose down here, just undo these 10mm bolts and you will hold the struts at the same time. It's pretty heavy, and when you loosen this it will fall down, so make sure it doesn't break any brake lines or anything like that. And in the rear the strut sits with 16mm bolts, 4 of them, which is also quite easy. Then we have a 21mm bolt down here that could sit a bit. So remove this one, and then the top ones, and the strut should come loose. And he also has mounted some lowering springs. I don't know how long ago, they have probably sit here for a while, but it should be quite easy to disassemble the strut because this is going to be used afterwards. finally got the rear strut out. It was a real hassle. One bolt was sticking like I don't know what. And that's the problem. In Sweden at winter time we have real salty roads. And since we are driving on the right side of the road, the left side of the car is the most exposed to the salt. So the left side is always more rusty and the bolts are more stuck. So now we're gonna continue and fix the front coilovers. So this is how the front coilovers are delivered. So you just remove the top hat and all the springs, like so. So the first thing we need to do before modifying the welds and the attachment of this, we need to remove this dampener. So I have seen two different options of these locking rings. I have already removed one, and it's removed with two like this guiding pins, and it sits really hard. So at first I was using like a tool that looks like this, that you buy like in the hardware store. I just grinded up the hole a little bit so it fits over this, but it got bent because this is stuck really hard. And I used another tool that's for changing discs on the angle grinder, and this also got bent because it's too hard. So I took what I had, and this is like from a mole liner, the blade. So I cut out and threaded in two M6ers. So the really important thing here is to protect the shaft, because if this gets scratched, but it could damage the seal so in the dampener, so always protect. There we go. This is officially patent pending. So as I said before, there could be two different options of this one, and you don't get to choose it. So either it's these two with the two tabs, or it's just blanked off and one of these like hexagon nuts fits in here. This I have had made from a machine shop, so it's no regular nut. So yeah, I hope you get this one. It gets real messy when you work with these type of things. So the next thing we are going to do is we're going to release these welds right here and right here. Keep this on the back side, so we could just split this open, and also in the bottom release this a little bit. And this one we are going to cut away. It's the holder for the ABS sensor line and the brake line, and we are just going to reuse this. So here you can see the bolt pattern, and this is the new one, and you can see that it's almost out of angle. So we are going to cut this open, then weld on a little plate here. And this is also important because here you can choose whether you like to have negative camber or positive camber. So always go for the negative, but it's not that much you can do, but make sure it's a little bit inward so you get a little bit negative camber. Always good if you're trying to race. If you're going on a regular road, then you might don't want to have so much negative camber. So now you can see I have cut the welds open and splitted this apart a little bit. So here I have a piece that's 30 millimeter, which is also the case with the attaching point. So you can see 30 millimeters. So this is the part that's different with all of this different year of 9.5s. So this mod is for 02 and onwards, so 02 to 2010. This will fit. Try to get it as centered as possible. Now my welds are not going to be as nice as this was, but I'm gonna do my best. I have a really cheap welder. I should really stress that out before, but we should manage to tack this down at least, or make it a full weld. Just get the right settings on the welder. Not too bad though. now I'm gonna cut out some pieces of this sheet metal to use as the new bolt holes. So now the plates are done, so I'm just gonna line them up, and I'm not gonna fully weld them because the bolt and the nut will keep it together, so I will just make short welds to hold it in place and then remove all of the excess that's outside. So now this is fully welded, so I'm going to use a light coat of zinc spray to keep it from rust and corrosion. So there is definitely right and wrong ways of doing this, but actually it works either way. Use one of these tools to take the tension of the spring is good. If you don't have this tool, I have done it before and loosened this with a gun like this, and it's really no problem. There will be a little bang, but it won't like crash into a wall or destroy a house. It's like ding, it's gonna flip apart. But the best thing is always to take the tension of the spring. And the nut on the top on this one is 17 millimeters. Then you take a vice grip or something like that and pinch really high on this, because if you take it very low you might destroy it. Of course there will be a scratch, but high up it doesn't really matter. So now I just take a wire brush and spray paint this black. So always nice to refit it a little bit cleaner. So these are pretty much the same, except it's a 21mm bolt, and the only thing you need from this is the top bearing and mounting points, and you also will need the bump stop. So before putting everything together, there's one more thing that we need to modify, and this is like the top hat on the coilover, and it's got a little edge that's sticking up right here, and here we have the top mounting point and also the bearing. So the bearing should have connection to this, otherwise it will just be metal against metal. And I don't know if you can see, but when I hold it up like this, there's like 5mm of play, so then you will have a knocking sound when you're turning eventually. So we need to trim this down a bit so we have full connection with the bearing. So now it's time to reassemble everything. So I have put the adjustment down to the lowest point, the bottom. Now we're putting back the dampener. Like so. And then we take this nut, and I'm going to add some Loctite on it because we don't want it to get loose. Then we take the OEM bump stop. This has been damaged. It should look like this. So we're going to shorten it a bit. So we only need this little piece here, because we are going to go pretty low, so we don't want this to stop the low. So OEM versus modified. Oh, there's this little plastic first, like so, the bump stop. Even though it's pretty high, I think. Then we add the helper. This is a really light spring, so it will compress super light. This is the stiff one that will keep the car up. Like so. Then we add the modified top. And then the top mount, the bearing. So as you see, when it's at its lowest point, the spring will actually hang loose. So we're going to thread this up a bit. And the new one comes with 2 nuts, one in the bottom. So I think the new one is 19. So here we have it. It's a little bit bent, so you get down really far. As low as it gets. And then the top nut, which has locking in it. So the rod has a 6mm hex fitting to it, so you can hold it still while tightening it, because this one you don't want to use a vice grip or anything like that. Like so. So it's fully assembled. For the rear I have prepared a little bit because I'm running out of memory card. So first, the bump stop in the rear I have shortened a bit. Just pull that over, and the spring has been shortened. 2 springs, which I think will be pretty good, so we can go real low if we want to. Then it's just to add these top bushings, this one first, then the console. Make sure that the spring end is in this corner, so it has something to lay against. Like so. Then the top bushing then it's just to thread on the nut, and in this case it's 17 millimeters. And to assemble it, it's just a reversed order. So this I hate a lot. On most 9.5s this is just hanging sloppy. So we are going to remove this. So we are going to, not today but in a future episode, we are going to cut away some of the edge here, make a small cut and then roll the edge so we get a clean edge. So I have some new center hubcap rings or center hub rings that will take 65.1 to 66.6, which is on these rims. The coilovers are locked down. I can lower 2.5 centimeters in the rear, and in the front I think I have 1.5 centimeters to lower, but I think this will be really low when we lower it to the ground. So now we're just gonna put on the wheels and lower it and see how it looks. Are you ready? Should we do it? So the front has actually been lowered 3 centimeters or 30 millimeters from previous, and it had 30 millimeter lowering springs to start with. So it's like lowered 60 millimeters in the front, which is too much. It needs to come up like 10 millimeters, I would say, is kind of good. And then the wheel needs to come out. I think we got some camber on it right now. And the rear, I would say, is pretty much ideal. Maybe a little bit lower. So I think raise it like 10 millimeters in the front and maybe keep it like it is in the rear, or maybe lower it like 0.5 centimeter or something like that. But otherwise it's low. It's really low. So the front needs to come up. It's pretty much as low as it could get in the front, and that's nice for you to see as well. So I'm really happy about how this turned out. Of course the car is going to be in the garage for a while now, because we are going to do the gearbox and everything else, build the exhaust. So I will definitely make the car higher before I go drive it, because the springs and the dampeners will settle a little bit on the first drive for a couple of miles. Some say the 100 first miles or something like that, but we will higher it a bit and drive it and then lower it to the exact height that we want. And the ride quality on these coilovers are quite good. I have run them in 2 sedans before and it has worked out perfect. I have not taken them to any tracks, but I have driven them quite hard on the road and it works good. So we will see when this hits the track how they work. But I have also done coilovers that's 4 times the price of these ones, and I can't feel a big difference really. So on the more expensive coilovers, the spring has a tension from factory and you should not move that. Instead you lower the whole strut. So here you lower the spring, so the spring loses its tension, but as soon as you lower the car, the tension is on the spring, but it's not really the same. So on the more expensive coilovers you can adjust the dampening and how hard or soft or rebound and everything like that, but that's a little bit more advanced, maybe something for the future. But this lowers the car really good and it's awesome for just regular driving every day. It's quite bumpy, but not too soft and not too hard in my opinion. So definitely a good buy. Even if you buy the coilovers, buy a welder with flux core, it's still not even half the price of the more expensive ones. So definitely a good buy. I hope you liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I will see you really soon again. Bye!